November 1950, North Korea. They called it the Frozen Chosin. It wasn't just a battlefield, it was a different planet. Temperatures dropped to 30, sometimes 40 degrees below zero. The ground was so hard you couldn't dig a foxhole, you had to blast it with dynamite. Weapons froze, vehicles wouldn't start. Morphine syrettes had to be kept in a medic's mouth just to keep the liquid from turning to ice. And into this freezer, the United Nations forces had marched thinking the war was over. They were wrong. 120,000 Chinese soldiers had secretly surrounded the 30,000 Allied troops. They attacked at night, wave after human wave, announced by the terrifying sound of bugles and whistles in the dark. This story takes place on Hill 1282, a small, jagged overlook protecting the main supply route, the only way out for the retreating Marines and Army units. If Hill 1282 fell before dawn, the convoy would be cut off, the massacre would be total. Holding the tip of the spear was Corporal Sammy, or Sammy Hayes. Sammy was 22, a radio operator from a coal town in West Virginia. He wasn't a big man. He wore thick wire-rimmed glasses that fogged up in the cold. He wasn't a commando. He was the guy who carried the SCR 300 radio pack, the walkie-talkie on his back. He was the voice of Baker Company. It was 0200 hours. The moon was hidden behind heavy snow clouds. The visibility was near zero. Baker Company had been fighting for 3 days straight. They were down to 20 men. No ammo, no food. And the Chinese were massing at the bottom of the slope for the final push. Lieutenant Miller, the platoon commander, knew the score. He grabbed Sammy by the shoulder. "Headquarters says the convoy needs 1 more hour, Lieutenant," Miller whispered. "If we leave now, they die. If we stay, we die." Sammy adjusted the dials on his radio. His fingers were black with frostbite. He could barely feel the knobs. "I can get us artillery, Lieutenant," Sammy said. "The 105s are set up in the valley. I just need to spot for them." The sound froze the blood in their veins. The bugles. It meant the attack was starting.
It wasn't a battle. It was a flood. The Chinese hit the perimeter with grenades and submachine guns. The American line crumpled. In the confusion, a mortar round landed in the command pit. Sammy took shrapnel to both legs. He couldn't stand. He couldn't walk. Lieutenant Miller crawled over to him, dragging him toward the rear slope. "Come on, Hayes, we're pulling back. We have to move." The line had broken. The order was given, retreat to the secondary ridge. But Sammy looked at his legs. He looked at the steep, icy slope behind them. He knew physics. He knew time. If they tried to carry him, they would be slow. And if they were slow, the Chinese would catch them all. Corporal Hayes made the calculation. It was the math of war. He unbuckled the radio from his back. He shoved it against a frozen rock, propping himself up against the sandbags. "Leave me, sir," Sammy said. "Don't be an idiot, Hayes," Miller screamed. Sammy shoved the lieutenant's hand away. He pulled the handset to his face. "You can't carry me fast enough, sir. You know it. I can call in the fire. I can hold them off long enough for you to cross the ridge." The Chinese were inside the wire, 50 yards away. Lieutenant Miller looked at Sammy. It was the hardest moment of his life. He nodded once. He didn't say goodbye. There are no goodbyes in moments like that. He just handed Sammy his last grenade and ran. Sammy was alone. Corporal Hayes keyed the mic. "Command, this is Baker 6 radio. Do you read? Over." "Baker 6, this is fire direction. We read you. We thought you guys were gone. What is your status?" Sammy looked over the sandbags. The enemy was swarming the lower trench. Hundreds of them. "Status is critical," Sammy said. "Main element is falling back. I am remaining at the observation post. I have targets in the open." "Baker 6, say again, you are remaining." "Affirmative. Request fire mission. High explosive and variable time fuse. Grid 744. 829. The first volley slammed into the slope, 200 yards in front of Sammy. It slowed them down, but they kept coming. The Chinese soldiers, brave and terrified in their own right, were running through the explosions. Sammy watched them. He keyed the mic again.
Drop 50. Fire for effect. Baker 6, that brings it inside the wire. Is your unit clear? Sammy watched the retreating figures of his friends disappear over the ridgeline in the distance. They were safe.
Unit is clear, Sammy lied. Drop 50. Pour it on.
The artillery tore the earth apart, but the enemy was relentless. They were cresting the hill. Sammy used his carbine with one hand, firing into the dark while holding the radio with the other. He was running out of time. The radio operator at Fire Direction Center, a sergeant named Kowalski, could hear the gunfire over the radio. He could hear the enemy shouting.
Baker 6, we advise you displace. You sound too close.
Sammy chuckled, a dry, rattling sound. Nowhere to go, Command. It's a nice view from here, though. The enemy was 20 yards away. He could see their faces. He could see the steam of their breath. He had one job left. If the Chinese took this hill, they could set up machine guns and cut down his retreating friends. He had to deny them the ground. He keyed the mic. Command, adjust fire. Go ahead, Baker 6. Grid 744 831. There was a pause on the other end. The men in the Fire Direction Center looked at their maps. They checked the coordinates. They looked at each other in horror. Baker 6, that is your position. Repeat, that is your position. Sammy pulled the pin on his last grenade, holding it tight, just in case the shells missed. I know where it is, Command. They're all over me. There's too many of them. Burn it out. Do it now. Baker 6, I cannot. Do it. Sammy's voice cracked for the first time. For the boys, Sarge. Do it. The Fire Direction Sergeant closed his eyes. Tears ran down his face. He nodded to the gun crews. Battery 1, the sergeant whispered. Fire mission. Danger close. On my command. On the hill, Sammy Hayes watched the sky.
He didn't think about the war. He didn't think about the geopolitics or the generals or the cold. He thought about his mom's front porch in West Virginia. He thought about the smell of summer rain. He thought about the guys who were going to make it home because of this moment. He keyed the mic one last time. Thanks for the help, boys. Give 'em hell. Baker 6, out. The sun rose over Chosin. The artillery barrage had broken the Chinese attack on the right flank. The supply convoy, carrying thousands of wounded and frostbitten Marines, slipped through the pass. They made it to the sea. They made it home. Days later, a patrol returned to Hill 1282. They found the radio. It was smashed. They found the bodies of the enemy, dozens of them scattered around the sandbags. And in the center, they found what was left of Corporal Samuel Hayes. He was still gripping the handset. There is no grave for Sammy in Arlington. His body could not be retrieved from the frozen north. He remains there, on guard, forever a part of the mountain. The radio logs from that night were preserved. The final coordinate he called in, his own, is still taught in artillery school as the ultimate example of the term danger close. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the knowledge that there is something more important than fear, more important than life itself. For Sammy Hayes, that something was his brothers. The Korean War is often called the Forgotten War, but for those who were there, the memory of the cold never fades. If this story moved you, please salute Corporal Hayes by hitting the like button and subscribe to keep these legends alive.